and welcome to the Rainbow Umbrella, the podcast where we talk about anything and everything under the rainbow. Mental health and well-being, even with increasing understanding and support, is something that is still regularly overlooked or taken for granted. For some people, it is still incredibly difficult to talk about any struggle they may have with their mental health. In some cases, those who love and care for us may not want to hear or are unable to process the information and feelings that we share with them. Regardless of whether it is you or someone you love, everyone will have their mental health impacted in one way or another in varying degrees of severity. Looking after your own mental health and identifying the most appropriate ways to do this is something that is really important to me, and that is the focus of today's episode. It could be your personal life, your family life, your romantic life, or your professional life that at any time may cause a problem for your mental health. It doesn't matter who you are or what you do in life, you aren't immune from the negative impacts of an attack on your mental health and well-being. Many professions, however, have a higher risk of having something impact their well-being for the worse, simply due to the nature of the work and the situations that job requires. Professions that support people in pain or in trauma or regularly face high emotion and high pressure scenarios are particularly susceptible. A job that often combines all of these is policing, increasingly so in New Zealand as dangerous situations and awful scenarios are sadly becoming more frequent. So for this episode, I wanted to talk to someone who has recently joined the police force in New Zealand, someone for whom mental health and well-being is as important for his job as it is for him personally. Kia ora, Charlie. Thank you for joining me here today.
Hello, Mel.
How you doing?
Good, yes.
Good.
Thank you for having me.
It's awesome to have you here. So, firstly, what made you want to join the police force?
It's a very good question. I think for me, personally, I've always wanted to help. Mm-hmm. Like I find it very rewarding to try and help people, especially in crisis. Mm-hmm. I'm a people person. Yeah, I think I've always wanted to work in a environment where I'm working with people. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Excellent. I guess that's a pretty good reason for doing something like this.
Yeah.
So what training and support services are offered to New Zealand police officers, either before they start officially working in the area or once they're deployed?
I guess in terms of, like, you're not employed by the police until you get to the college stage, then you're officially employed. Mm-hmm. In terms of support services before that point, I guess the only person you really have to rely on is your recruitment officer. Mm-hmm. And I mean, and by way of support, they're only really supporting you to get you through the process. Whereas when you join the police, and especially at college, you've got your sergeant that's always there mm-hmm. to help you talk about what you're struggling with, or what ways you can be supported. Mm-hmm. They've got everything's basically at the college. You've got like medical services, including therapy support. Mm-hmm. So you can go and talk to someone if you're struggling with your mental health or, stress, because it's a very stressful environment. Mm. And I suppose when you graduate and you come out as a constable, we have access to things like EAP, mm-hmm. EAP services, which I think they align with quite a lot of different departments. Mm-hmm. And that's, just some, I suppose it's counselling, you'd call it. Quite honestly, I think what you do most for support is you rely on your teammates, mm-hmm. like other people in your group. And, you tend to get quite close with the people in your group. It's certainly been the case for me personally. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, even the people in your wing from college, not all of them would have been deployed to Ōtepoti. The rest of them, they might be all around Aotearoa. Yeah. So do you still keep in touch with them?
To be honest, not all of them. Mm-hmm. But I had a very close group of people that I do still keep in contact with. Mm-hmm. Actually, one of them I just saw the other day. Yeah. He's from Invercargill, and another one from Timaru, another one from Christchurch. But yeah, like we still do keep in touch, which is quite nice. Yeah, yeah, that's lovely, I guess, because, they're going through the same stuff, particularly at college. They're learning the same things, dealing with the same, training scenarios as you. Yeah. And it's really nice to have that support once you're actually deployed in whichever city or area you're going to be in. Yeah, for sure. And I suppose we're all going through the same part of our career at the same time. Yeah. And so we might have, experienced things that the others haven't. Yeah. And so we can all just talk about, we've gone through a scenario which is, was pretty tough or rewarding. So yeah, it's nice to have that continued support from day dot up until now.
Yeah. So in your first few months as a constable, you've had to deal with some pretty gnarly scenarios, especially for down here in Ōtepoti. So have you had to use any of the training that you've been provided? And if so, what have you found the most useful?
So, I mean, we always have ongoing training if it's like using our appointments in terms of the tools that we're given to use.
So I'm interested in, like, you've dealt with some pretty rough stuff. We're friends. We've talked briefly about some of the things you've had to deal with.
Yeah.
I would find those situations personally quite challenging mentally and emotionally. So I'm just wondering, what tools were you provided in training or even, that you've learned afterwards that you may have had to use in those scenarios to deal with those high pressure points?
I suppose the police will probably always say that a bit of dark humour doesn't go amiss, which is true. And I have to say it is true. You have to be able to have a laugh, but being appropriate about it. But also noticing in yourself if it's becoming an issue and if it's having an impact on you. And I think just the best way to do that is just to talk about it and say, like, actually, this has had an effect on me. You talk to your sergeant, say, well, I need to go and talk to someone about this. That's probably been the most effective for me. Does that answer your question?
It does. It does. And I mean, that just goes to show the power of kōrero, talking with people that have, may not have experienced the exact same thing, but have been in similar sort of situations, have been there, and will understand it better than, civvies like us.
Yeah, I mean, and I suppose talking to the people in your group as well, because they will have gone through the same thing, because generally if it's quite a big thing, we're all going to it. So if there's more senior members in your group, they've probably been to jobs like that multiple times. So, they understand the effect that it has and they're more equipped to be able to provide those services or advice on how you should go about it.
Yeah, and I mean, I guess there's a flow-on effect of that because if, you'll learn from an experience from, senior members or even, your peers and colleagues, and that you'll be able to pass down the line when new officers join and you work with them.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. You're bang on.
So do you feel any apprehension about going to work at all?
It's a double-edged sword, that. You're just banging out the good questions today.
That's what I do.
It's a bit of a double-edged sword because to me personally, this is the best job in the world. Like you know me, how long I've worked to get into this role. It's been a long time, and I love it. There is something in the back of my mind that always tells me that if I go to work and I'm not on, or if I go to a serious job and I'm not on, it could be my last day on earth. And you have to be very conscious of that. It doesn't deter me from going to work because I turn up to work to do a good job and to get results for people and to help. But it's something that you're always really conscious of, that if you could be stepping out of the door for the last time and not be coming back. Because there's always that danger.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, there's two things I want to pull on there. One, like, how do you combat that, knowing that, that's in the back of your mind? How do you still go to Mahi every day? And two, that must take its toll on you, thinking that relatively regularly. How do you look after yourself in that space?
I guess the job that we do, well, not talking for everyone, but for me personally, it's you turn up to work for others. Like I don't turn up to work to do this job for myself. And so if there's a job that we need to go to where other people are at risk or they need help, then you have to put yourself aside and you need to do what needs to be done for the people that need help. And you just need to be okay with that. And yeah, it does take a toll. I think the less you think about it, the better, which is hard. But like I say, it's kind of a selfless thing where you need to think about, put other people's needs first above your own. And that's, I would say that's what most police will be doing, is putting others first before your own well-being.
I guess that's also another way of, protecting yourself, just reminding yourself why you're doing the mahi that you do, why you've joined the police force while you're doing the things that you do every day.
Yeah. And to be honest, at college they do bring this up a lot because you need to have that squared away. Because if you're not thinking about it, then when you do have a bad day, you're probably just going to freeze up and you're not going to be able to help anyone. You're not going to be able to help your colleagues. You're not going to be able to help the people that need help. So yeah, you have to square it away inside yourself to be able to get that result.
That can't be easy to do, though.
No, it's not. And it does take time. Like I've been in situations where I've been caught off guard, or something's happened that you just weren't expecting, which happens, and your heart rate goes through the roof, and your critical thinking goes out the window. But you do learn from it, and you learn to be comfortable in those sort of situations and sort of to snap out of it a bit quicker. But yeah, to start off with, it's really not easy. When I first started, I was a lot more anxious to go to most jobs, knowing that things could kick up and this could be bad. But I think just more exposure doesn't really worry me so much anymore. It's probably just, like I say, exposure or, yeah.
I guess, practice makes perfect.
Yeah.
Not perfect in a way, but helps you deal with that.
Yeah, I think it is just something you need to square away in yourself and just be comfortable with it. That, things are going to change and they can change pretty quickly. But yeah, if you want to be able to help, then you just need to be able to put others first.
So as you mentioned, your job regularly puts you in situations where anything could happen and you have to keep yourself as well as the public you support safe. So apart from the tools you've learned at college that you've just kind of touched on, what things do you do to prepare yourself for these situations?
I think you've got to try and keep your mind healthy. And when you're not at work, try not to be thinking about work. I mean, it's hard for me because I kind of live and breathe the police. It's all consuming. It is all consuming of your life. But you have to hold on to the things that you actually enjoy doing outside of work. So trying to keep your mind healthy and trying to keep your body healthy. Yeah, that's probably the best way.
And what do you do to keep your mind healthy?
Personally, it's kind of it works on both things, but exercise is huge for me. I feel like if I'm keeping to a good exercise routine, then it's good for my mind as well. I do some meditation, and quite recently been doing some yoga, which has been very nice. That's generally how I try and keep on top of my mental health. And just talking, like you say, korero. If you need to notice when things aren't good, and generally it'd probably be the ones closest to you that will come onto it first, probably, and say, hey, look, something's probably not right.
Yeah,
you're not yourself, or so just be open to listening to that. Don't take it personally. And seek some help, go and talk to someone, friends, family, whoever.
Yeah, so I guess really checking in and see how you're feeling, in yourself.
100%.
Sort of thing. Yeah.
100%, yeah.
Yeah. So exercise, meditation, yoga, those are the things you do to decompress after a particularly stressful day?
Yeah, it would be. Yeah, I mean, and I think you've got to hold on to the things that you actually enjoy doing outside of work recreationally as well, right? So I play football, play a bit of sport, enjoy a bit of gaming. Hold on to those things as well, because like I say, the job is consuming. They're long shifts, they're over a number of days. Quite often you're tired, but you've got to hold on to those things that you do enjoy doing outside of it.
You mentioned that it's all consuming, which I can absolutely see how it would be, but how do you think you can, even just a little bit, separate your mahi from your daily life?
I suppose just be conscious when you step out the door that you're no longer in your uniform, that, now it's time for you. You've put yourself out there for others. And I'm sure you wouldn't stop doing that even though you're not wearing a uniform, but that's your time. And you need to make sure that you're looking after you first. So you can come back, give 100% of yourself back to the job. Just be conscious that, you need time as well. Yeah.
You can't help others if you haven't looked after yourself first, right?
Yeah. That old thing of the, put your own seatbelt on first before you
Yeah.
do someone else's.
Yeah. So what is the hardest thing about your job?
It's a lot of hard things about this job. think it plays around with your morals a lot. And I mean, the law, although it looks like it's black and white, it kind of isn't, because it's dependent on the situation. I mean, I suppose the hardest thing is you can't help everyone. You might turn out to a job and, you know, you're there to help, but unfortunately you can't, just depending on that situation. It's not nice getting abuse. I mean, you learn to deal with it, and it's something you become used to, but it is hard. Yeah, just things like that. Yeah, there's always hard aspects to every job, but I think those are probably the key ones. I mean, it's never going to be easy if we're being called a pig shit. We get spat at, we get assaulted.
Yeah.
Because we're not looked at as a human being. We are seen quite often as a uniform, faceless uniform, you know, and that's hard. Because quite often when I'm dealing with people, I try to deal on a human level in terms of like, hey, look at me, me as a person, don't look at my uniform. If you don't like me, that's fine. Like, I don't care, but you know, that's fine. But let's deal on a human level, person to person. But quite often that isn't the case, and people can't see past that. Yeah, so that is a very hard aspect of the job. But I think you become hardened to it. Yeah.
There's a couple of things I want to pull on there because that was really interesting. One, that is not the sort of thing that you should have to become accustomed to. I know, you know, there's a self-preservation aspect to that. You need to do it to do your mahi, but it's not something you should have to deal with. And two, the uniform aspect was really interesting as well because, you know, in some respects people see the uniform and think, oh, I've got to be good now, or like, oh shit, I'm going to run. But it's also a barrier to them seeing you as just a fellow human, right?
Yeah. Like I have had instances where the first dealing with them is puff up, be like, nah, you're just a cop, like not talking to you. And then we will have a conversation and start talking, and I can feel that we're having that connection person to person, and then they'll realise that and switch again, nah, you know, which is real interesting for me. It's just like, oh, almost had you there.
Yeah.
But yeah. And it's, you know, it's not something that anyone should have to deal with. You're right. I suppose for our line of work, it almost becomes like a rite of passage. I think I remember it was almost my second week on group, and that was the first time I got assaulted. And then, you know, you come back to talk about it, and everyone's, you know, said, oh, you know, everyone's been assaulted on the job. It's just what happens. Everyone's been abused on the job. It's just what happens. And it's kind of weird. It's weird because I don't think you'd really get that in any other role.
No, and that almost feels dangerously close to, oh, this is the way we've always done it, so let's just carry on and like... I mean, we're not here to unpick that whole thing, but I just find that really, really interesting and
100%.
Sorry that that's a thing that you guys have to deal with because it shouldn't be.
I mean, it is weird. It is very odd to be like, oh, well, you know, it happens to everybody. But at the same time, like, when it does happen, everyone checks on you. You know, okay, do you need anything? You know, whatever. And, you know, I guess it kind of, it builds the relationships you have within work as well. But yeah, it's very strange.
Yeah, I mean, it almost sounds as if it's not an encouragement sort of thing, but it's all like accepting the inevitable. And it's like, hey, this is probably going to happen to you, but we're here for you when it does. Yeah.
I mean, again, like at college, they outline that. Unfortunately, there just is people out there that just don't like police. And I'm sure they have their reasons for that, but, you know, the likelihood of getting assaulted and abused is always there. And it's probably going to happen a lot.
What is your favourite or most rewarding thing about your job then? Let's just flip it and get some good stuff going.
Yeah, I like that. I mean, like I said, this is the best job in the world. Like, regardless as to the stuff we've just talked about before, it is so good. Like, I've never had a job like this where I'm springing out of bed at all times of the day or night, you know, to go to work and to do something. For me, if it's anything to do, you know, when you get a good result for someone who's been wronged, like a victim, then it's unreal. The feeling is unreal. I'm sure I can probably share a good news story. As I was assigned to a job where a hearing impaired victim had lost their cochlear implant, and it turns out he was staying with these people and they had found it and they were trying to extort the cost of that implant from him to get it back.
Wow.
Which if you don't know, cochlear implants, especially this one, was about $10,000 to $11,000. So he called us, and I was assigned to that job. And long story short, I happened to touch base with the people, get the cochlear implant back, and give it back to that person. And I think just the gratitude, like it's a thing that they needed to live their everyday life, and someone was holding that over him. Yeah, just the gratitude sort of gives you a bit of the warm fuzzies to think like I've actually done something to help and to improve somebody's life. So yeah, things like that.
Yeah.
Awesome feeling. Like that's the one.
Yeah.
When you've made a difference for someone. But yeah, I suppose just anything. Like we turn up to help. That's what I mean. Like we turn up to help, and whenever you get a result, or it's a good day.
Yeah. I mean, there's not many jobs that'll get people springing out of bed, so it's pretty awesome that you have one.
I mean, I haven't had many in my long career of doing things, but it's just the best job in the world.
Yeah.
It's the best. Yeah.
So if you could change one thing about the way we talk or don't about mental health in Aotearoa, what would it be?
I think we need to be more vulnerable. Because with vulnerability, you see other people being vulnerable, and that makes you feel like, oh, I can do that as well because it's safe. Like it's safe for me to talk about my feelings because they've shared something with me that probably wasn't very easy for them to talk about. I can do that as well.
Yeah.
And I think with that, but that builds connection. Yeah. So I think the first thing is just to be courageous, to acknowledge how you're feeling, and then to talk about it and be vulnerable. And know that it's okay to be vulnerable. It's, actually makes you stronger to, talk about it.
Let those feelings out and not hide behind a false wall sort of thing.
Yeah, I suppose because, like, it's still it's concerning to me now that I still talk to particularly young males and give them the advice like, mate, you need to talk about how you're feeling, or go and speak to someone who you feel like you can trust. And the answer is often, nah, it's all right, I'll just deal with it. And of course, the way to deal with it is to just hold it in. And so things don't get better, they get worse. So yeah, I think while it's getting better, probably need to keep building on that culture of let's be vulnerable with one another.
Yeah.
And know that it's okay to do that.
That's lovely. Thank you. So now that you've been working as a constable in Ōtepoti for almost a year, what advice or one piece of information would you give to those who are looking at joining the police service?
When you're going through the process, I think you want to do it in one go. But it's tough. It's a long and it's a tough process. So I guess don't be afraid to have a little speed wobble. If that happens, there's support there that can help you get around that. Personally, the literacy test and, the academic testing was never my strong point. I didn't finish high school, stuff like that. I was just never very good at school. So that was always a big thing for me. So I guess noticing where you need to put your energy as well and just looking for resources that helps you overcome that. yeah, just don't be afraid to have a wee speed bump. It's okay. Everyone has a speed bump. I don't think anybody's gone through the police process when it's been 100% absolutely perfect. I'm sure they have, but it's, once you get to college, same deal. I quite often told people at the end when I was graduating, don't be afraid to fail. I don't think they're looking for perfection. In fact, I think it's the opposite. They're looking for resilience. And when you do, if you do fail something, how you bounce back from it. So yeah, just keep trying. Don't expect to be perfect. Just keep going. Yeah.
That's beautiful and a lovely note to end on. Thank you so much for joining me here, Charlie. It's been really awesome having a kōrero with you and you being so open, honest and vulnerable with me. So thank you.
It's a pleasure. No worries. Thank you for having me.
The Rainbow Umbrella is kindly sponsored by the Aurora Cafe in Mosgiel. The Rainbow Umbrella theme song is by Paul S. Allen and Beth. Check them out on Spotify. New episodes of The Rainbow Umbrella are available every fourth Thursday on Otago Access Radio 105.4 FM on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you like to get your podcasts. Do you have an idea for an episode or something you would like to kōrero about? Get in touch at rainbowumbrellapod@gmail.com.